Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's Kansas and Nebraska Auto Body Association's virtual training event. My name is Tony Adams, and I'm the Vice President of the Kansas Auto Body Association. On behalf of the state of Kansas and the Kansas Auto Body Association, we'd like to welcome you to tonight's event. As a reminder, everybody's off screen and muted tonight, so if you have any questions, be sure and put them in the chat. We're going to do things a little bit differently tonight, and our presenter is going to go through the program, and we'll save Q&A and open it up at the end. But if you've got something that's burning, be sure and send it in the chat box, and myself and my friend James will be sure to get them asked on your behalf. And with that, I'm going to introduce my good friend James Rodas with Nebraska. James, it's all yours.
Thanks, buddy, and welcome everybody. Tonight we have a great presentation from PPG. Discovery, the missing link. I know they've been doing these all years and they've had great reviews. So we got our good buddy Mike Gunnells on here, and he is going to run through it with everybody. And remember, we have the chat. We're going to hold it till the end. So me and Tony will try to monitor those so we can get the questions to Mike at the end. So Mike, without further ado, take it over, buddy.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it, and appreciate the opportunity to be able to present this to you. I'm going to go off camera while I do the presentation, take you through the session just to gain some bandwidth to eliminate any possible audio or video issues that we might have with internet bandwidth. So let me get that done, and we'll get started. So the topic I'm presenting tonight, as I said, is Discovery, the Missing Link, a PPG MVP virtual learning session. So what is Discovery, the Missing Link? First of all, what is Discovery? Discovery is an integral and critical part of the X-ray repair planning process that we teach in our Greenbelt training program. In our Greenbelt training program, which is 3 days, we spend a half a day on teaching the X-ray repair painting process. And we go into a lot of detail. Part of that detail is the Discovery session. Discovery, I'll tell you, all the components of X-ray repair plan are critically important, but without Discovery, there's no real need to do meticulous disassembly at an accurate level. And what I mean by that is that we're all humans, we all make errors, we get interrupted. And when those things happen, that's usually when we make errors on our final repair plan. The Discovery meeting is the opportunity to find those repair requirements and eliminate that error. X-ray repair planning, when it's executed accurately, is meant to protect the repair process. And I'll share with you that when it is executed accurately, it has the ability to correct 80% or more of the issues that cause technicians to stop when working on vehicles. Tonight, we're just going to focus on that Discovery session, or that Discovery component, as part of this virtual learning session. So what is Discovery the missing link to? First of all, it's the missing link to completing repair plans that are technically accurate, litigation worthy, but also profitable. It's also the missing link to reducing cycle time and increasing hours per day, or what people refer to as touch time. It's the missing link to eliminating multiple supplements. It's not uncommon for us to hear shops still have 3, 4, 5, and 6 supplements on a repair job. But other pieces are reducing stress and frustration. Well, it's a missing link to that as well, because what does all of the things I just mentioned above create is stress and frustration between team members. And then finally, an additional piece is it's the missing link to reducing the lost production opportunity by keeping techs working on cars continuously. So before I move ahead with the technical aspects of the Discovery meeting, where we'll actually touch on the actual mechanics of it, so how to set up for it, how to execute the meeting, how to do the follow-up, we'll cover all of that. But before I do that, I mentioned lost production opportunity. And normally if I'm in front of somebody in a class where we can have a two-way conversation, I'll also ask the question, do you think there is a value to lost production opportunity? So as I began to put this session together last year, when we started running it virtually, I had to think about how could I facilitate that same question with a set of slides. And this is what I came up with. Lost production opportunity, what's the value? So we all understand that we sell labor, we sell parts, we sell material, and we sell sublet. So it's not just about the labor rate. And if I take a $2,500 RO and I break it by an average repair order hours of 20, which is not uncommon for that size RO, it tells me that each of those 20 billable hours, $125 an hour, that's 2,500 divided by 20 is $125 per billable hour sold. If I break that into 60 minutes for every one of those hours, it tells me that that minute, every minute sold out of a billable hour is worth $2.08 a month. 125 divided by 60. Taking that a little further, I'll always ask the crowd, do you think that an average tech loses 30 minutes of production every day chasing parts, chasing answers, chasing supplements, chasing materials, chasing? Messing with supplements where we don't get it done and we write multiple supplements. Do you think 35 minutes is legitimate? And every time the whole room will be shaking their head yes and going, it's more like an hour and a half or more. So let's stick with 35 minutes conservatively and see what that shows us. So I take that same analogy and say $2.08 a minute times 35 minutes. That means it's $72.80 per technician per day. And if I multiply that times an average of 10 technicians in the shop that's producing billable hours, now I'm at $728 a day for the 10 technicians. And if I say one more layer to that is the annual number of work days is an average typical year, 256 days. Does this have a value? It absolutely does. And it's called the value of lost production opportunity. So if you're sitting there and you go, well, 35 minutes is kind of conservative, Mike. Okay, we'll say it's an hour. Double that number and you've got the math. It's a critical, terrible thing that's happening every single day in our shops today, over and over and over again. And I got to tell you that when I do this in a class, I typically ask one of the class members if they mind volunteering their numbers. And we'll do this freehand on a padboard sheet. And they literally get sick at their stomach when they realize what they're losing. I did this for a 23 shop MSO, and it was $16 million a year. Lost production opportunity based on things that, by the way, we have the ability to control. So before we get into the discovery meeting, we need to talk about the things that should be completed prior to running the meeting. So we call these pre-discovery meeting tasks. And let me just kind of say here, when I say the word completed, these things are completed pending the conclusion of the discovery meeting, because every one of these, there may be other stuff that's done. First of all, the visual mapping pending discovery needs to be 100%. The data grid pending discovery, 100%. Meticulous disassembly, 100%, not 99, 98, 95. I'm gonna leave that part on because it's gotta go outside, 100%. The parts cart needs to be loaded per the established standard at 100%. And the repair plan at that point needs to be written and printed. We also need to print out the parts list. Again, we need to print out any OEM repair procedures that are necessary to make good, solid decisions. Any parts diagrams that might be critical in understanding what we're going to do or properly identifying a part that's abnormal, if you will, not something we normally deal with, like an electronic component or a bracket that's maybe not in the estimating system we had to research it on. And all photos that have not been taken at the check-in process need to be taken at that point. Again, We may do some additional stuff out of each one of these. As the discovery meeting takes place, we identify and then get that at the end of discovery. But these are the tasks that we must get done at 100% level pre-discovery meeting, so that we're not wasting time on stuff that could have been handled way ahead of time. Next, I'd like to help you with understanding that we look at the definition of discovery. And the definition, according to Webster, is the act or process of discovering. Well, that's what we intend to do with this discovery meeting. What does that mean in real terms in our world? No damage discovered after the discovery meeting. All questions and all decisions are made during that discovery meeting, and there's none left to be made or none left to be answered when that meeting is finished. We want to create a repair plan that is so detailed, so accurate, and so absolute that it enables the technicians to work continuously on every vehicle when they have it, and eliminate all those stop-start production delays that happen quite frequently during the repair process. Now you'll see in that photograph, that's a real repair plan actually taking place, and you'll see some positioning that we'll talk about. You'll reference back to this photograph, but we're going to talk about what each one of those person's role in the discovery meeting is. So the discovery meeting, what is it? It's a quick meeting that's focused and disciplined to go over the repair plan, ensuring that nothing is missed and everyone agrees on the plan to repair that car. How long is it? Average job is just minutes, just enough time to review everything on the repair plan and give all the team members participating in the meeting a voice in how the repair should be done and how the repair plan is written. Who? Well, it's the repair planner, it's the parts person, and it's the disassembly tech. And then I'll show you where in times we may need a painter or a master tech if they're needed to pull them in, and I'll illustrate that in a moment. Where do we do this? It's in the repair planning bay, so at the vehicle in that repair planning bay. And changes to the repair plan are all final at the end of discovery. So we're not putting the car on the production floor and have someone come back and say, well, that quarter needs a couple of more hours on it. Well, then somebody should have made that decision in the repair planning session, or at least when we had the discovery meeting, they make that decision at that point. So when the repair plan is done at discovery, we should consider it good enough to be done. You say, well, you know what, Mike? Sometimes you're going to run into something that you just miss. So what does that mean? So the car leaves discovery and it goes into production and we have another supplement, then we check that one up as a complete failure on repair plan and we learn from it. Our objective here is to error-proof that repair plan, error-proof that production system, so that repair job going through the repair process, and completely error-proof it so it just flows through. If we want to get true flow, then we've got to start working on what it's going to take to keep techs continuously working on vehicles when they're in their bay. So I talked about who's involved, and I mentioned the repair planner, the disassembly tech, and the parts specialist. Those people are absolutely essential to this meeting. So in other words, they're mandatory. They have to be there. In fact, the repair planner leads this whole meeting. But depending on the essential skills that are represented in these particular three people, I may need to bring in a lead technician or a paint technician into that meeting to help make some of those decisions. But however, if I have a disassembly tech that was just previously an A-level technician and decided they wanted to slow down and they've been doing repairs for 30 years, I probably don't need a lead technician because that disassembly tech has the skills and the knowledge to make all repair decisions and replace decisions. By the same token, if I've got a repair planner that used to be a really high-level painter, good with color, I may not need that paint technician in there. But I'll share this with you. in all the discovery meetings, which I've lost count of, that I personally have been involved in with teaching shops how to run this meeting, when that painter comes in and goes through the first meeting, their typical comment is, I want to be in every one of these. Nobody thinks like a painter, and a lot of times they catch stuff everybody else will miss. We need to have certain tools available to us during this discovery process. Our estimating system has to be portable, wireless, and at the vehicle. And that should be for writing the repair plan and through the discovery meeting. Parts systems, access to vendor information at the car, access to the vendor's electronic catalog at the car, good solid internet with routers in place that keep speed up for accessing and locating parts, for moving data across our CCC or Mitchell system, being able to email people with digital photos to get clarification on, used parts or recycled parts. Information systems such as OE repair procedures need to be at our fingertips and be ready to pull. In fact, ideally, those repair procedures would be pulled during the repair process so that we know how to write that technically correct repair plan, and that it's written to be litigation worthy so that the car can be repaired from a litigation worthy standpoint. We may need to also have available to us frame structural body dimensions to take quick dimension checks on structural upper body dimensions such as that. Our management system, so that we can keep that management system up to date as to what is required, or what phase we're in with that repair job and getting it completed. We need to be able to update that management system. I wouldn't even think about starting a repair plan without checking the iCar Repairability Technical Support Portal. Great information to give me ideas of what calibration requirements are there, a lot of information there. And then lastly, the Paint Manager XI system from our company, PPG, to say, let me go ahead and run an estimate on that color code with this many panels being painted. How does that paint materials sales line up to what my estimate's given me as paint material sales? And then, of course, when I talk about OE repair procedures, you see the image for AllDat on there. Fantastic system. I love using it. But there are other systems like Mitchell's Repair Center. Very, very good system. And then there's also CCC1, which gives you repair methods. So there's a lot of systems out there. You have to decide which one or a combination of which ones is best for you. Some people decide to stick straight with buying the OE information straight from the manufacturer, and that's acceptable as well. But we have to get it, we have to use it for building that repair plan during that discovery meeting and also repairing the vehicle. Some additional discovery tools are an insurance company profile. So if we've got a repair planning station that's going to be writing cars for different carriers that we have DRP agreements with, we ought to have an updated profile that they can launch right from their desktop in a PDF, scroll to that particular provider's page, and look at the guidelines of what we can and can't do based on that particular agreement with that particular company. And then with all the different materials that are changing in the car today, and the fact that now some of the vehicle manufacturers have said, you can only repair this bumper cover if it's below this thickness, then we're going to have a gauge that measures paint thickness that's not only just ferrous, but non-ferrous. So that non-ferrous can measure plastic and composites. And of course, in some cases, we're going to find out there's no need to measure because it has to be replaced. They won't allow it to be repaired, especially in those areas where there's a radar component behind that corner that the system, the radar can't see through that. Once you fix and repair it, it's going to give a false read. Additional discovery tools include our color identification. In this case, we teach to determine that color in discovery. It's important to have access to the color deck and the color correct lighting source to make those color and blend decisions. Some shops, as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, have created their own very comprehensive and extensive spray out card library, which saves them valuable time and money when identifying the color. And very difficult colors, we can also kind of consider that sometimes we'll need to shoot them with the spectrophotometer to make sure that we're getting something that gets us close before we even start trying to tint or blend. And you can see an example of, using the color chip deck. You can see an example there of using spray out cards from the library. All of these tools are effective, but they need to be where we can come up with a process that gets them in when the discovery is done and the paint technician shows up. They know what to bring with them. I'll show you some of that in a moment. I mentioned early on about the ability to run an estimate. So here's an example of Paint Manager XI where we've got that loaded on my repair planner's computer. They can put the code in, they can run what we call a record as mixed estimate. And it shows here $381.66. Well, if my paint materials on my estimate is showing a $250 cap, we got a problem, and I can print this invoice right out, and then I can try to collect or go after that extra material and put it on my estimate as a part, because it is additional materials we need to collect. Another part of discovery, this also comes in as part of repair planning as well, but our MVP OEM parts link breakdown links document. So this is a document we put together for our customers to say, here's a link to a OEM electronic parts catalog. An example I'm showing you there is these are all hyperlinks. You just click on them. I clicked on partshyundai.com. It led me to their electronic site where I can actually, in this case, use a drop down to pick my vehicle. Some cases I can even decode the VIN. And then I click on the bumper and it gets me straight to the bumper category. And sometimes the diagrams might look exactly like your CCC or Mitchell, but a lot of times they'll give you additional information. All of these electronic catalogs provide you with the part number, the quantity, and the current list price. Or I should say, if it's clips, it'll tell you how many you gotta have. And a lot of times what we find is that in the estimating systems, they'll have the main components, but they don't break down these little components you see here. We also added to that document from a part sourcing standpoint, car-part.com, carpartpro.com, clipsandfasteners.com, and then Parts Voice. And I don't know if you've used Parts Voice, but Parts Voice will take an OEM part number and it will search the entire United States for that part. So if your local guy says that thing's on back order, bring up Parts Voice, because Parts Voice does not cost a collision center anything to have an account. Put that part information in there and run it. If you got 4 or 5 days worth of cycle time that's going to burn because a non-explosive part is going to be back ordered, then call that place and give them a credit card, let them put it in FedEx and ship it to you. And you can get that overnight for minimal cost, and then you can save 4 days worth of cycle time. We also put in there quick links to OEM One Stop where you can get position statements and other information. Your position statements also come in your repair procedures, and many times you may not find a position statement like on OEM One Stop, or you may not find something called a position statement. But once you dig into the OE repair procedure, you'll find wording in that repair procedure which states our position is, or GM's position is, or Toyota's position is, and that's actually a position statement that's buried inside the repair procedures. So great information that can just be linked out. And then of course the ICAR Repairability Technical Support site. I actually wind up when I'm working with shops, I actually use that RTS site from ICAR. I use it on my phone because I can quickly access it. I can quickly bring up the vehicle they're working on and say, okay, Here's what calibration requirements are required. Here's information that tells us that there is sectioning available for that rail, or is there not? So there's no need in going looking if it's not available, if they don't allow sectioning. A lot of different things we can get from that RTS site. If you don't have a subscription to that, right now, currently, ICAR is still running that as a free service to collision repair centers. I can't remember if they said it was going to go through June or go through the end of the year 21. I honestly can't remember, but the last that I talked to them, they were still running that as a free service for a certain period of time for collision repair shops. Define and communicate repair requirements is a integral part of this discovery process. So I'm going to have this kind of stuff prepared before I ever call my meeting to order. I'm going to have the ability to let them see how we've come up with writing that repair plan, whether it's photo instructions that I've doctored up with some text to give some instructions, it's a OE parts diagram that I've used, or in the case of the Hyundai site, I can actually print off that particular repair procedure. I'm going to have all of that laid out, ready for use during the discovery meeting, and then put upon the parts cart for use during the repairs. So in order to run an effective and efficient discovery meeting, one of the things that we've got to do is we can't spring it on someone at the last minute, and then we're waiting for all these different people. The first person shows up right away. The next person, is 5 minutes later. The next person's 8 minutes later. So when you start to look at it, we burn up, 10 or 15 minutes or 20 minutes waiting on people. So what do? We've got to come up with a system to notify the team we need in 10 to 15 minutes from the meeting start time. Now, the top picture is where they use the red, yellow, green, and blue lights for a lot of different things. The shop you actually see, collision repair shop, used blue lights. One was in the paint department, which is the one you see there. And they had one at each repair each repair team, and also one in parts. So when they flick that on, so the repair planner is the one that turns those lights on 10 to 15 minutes out from the meeting start time to give everybody the opportunity to get done with what they're immediately in the middle of and come over to the discovery meeting. And then that person showing up from whichever area they come from will turn off their individual light. So lights is one way. Two-way radios to do broadcast messages is another great way. One of the best I've seen is the iPhone example, where this was actually put together during a repair planning training session when we started talking about, okay, for discovery, how are we going to notify, the paint team, the body team that we're going to use? How are we going to notify them? And it was actually, the painter says, well, why don't we just text each other? Because we text during the day anyway. So we wound up putting together a group text that the repair planner could send out. And when they do, they say discovery meeting 10:05. It's a 2017 Ford F-250 Super Duty XLT, color code 3CT. Well, now the paint team, okay, so the paint department says Joe will attend. But what will Joe bring with him? He'll bring the color decks or spray outs necessary to make color decisions on 3CT, and he'll bring the correct light source. The acknowledgement coming from team one says Brian will attend. Well, now my repair planner knows who to expect in that meeting at the appropriate start time. So at 10:05, we're starting a meeting. So who am I expected to see standing there like a minute beforehand? I've got that because this is who acknowledged they will attend. One of the most effective and efficient systems I saw, because everybody's looking at their phone, everybody's messing with their phone, and these guys were texting each other anyway. So, can you use other visual signals? Absolutely. I've seen a ton of different things people will do to notify people. But when you start to get a shop that people can't see from one area to another, then now you got the ability to figure out, how can I notify everybody at once? Well, that two-way radio is great. I need everybody at 10:05. Well, that's great if they acknowledge and they hear the radio and you know, that's good because they can come back on the radio and acknowledge, so we can broadcast. But highly encourage you to look at the group text thing. It worked very effectively. So what happens with the people in this discovery meeting process? So we talked about, you know, why it's important, getting set up for it. What do we need to conduct it? Now let's talk about the steps of the actual meeting. So this is the repair planner, which is the meeting leader. Every person that arrives, the repair planner is giving them a copy of the repair plan. Now, this is not that 15 pages because it prints out all that junk. This is just the key components of the actual structured repair plan. Usually 2 sheets, big job, 3 sheets. They also do the same thing with the parts specialist, but they add to that the actual printout of the parts list. Any parts diagrams or OE repair procedures that we printed out and used during the repair planning process, disassembly, we lay those on the bench for view and review by anybody that wants to look at them to see how we made our current decisions. The meeting leader, the repair planner, calls that meeting to order. So in other words, saying something consistently that tells everybody, stop the gaggle, stop the chatter, we're starting the meeting. That repair planner does a line-by-line review of that repair plan and adds any appropriate commentary details that he needs to add to fully explain what we're doing. And they highlight areas of special interest, like front bumper cover, we're replacing. I have added the accent color on the bottom as an additional paint operation. That little bit of commentary leaves it with that person from paint so they don't have to turn around and ask that question. Ideally, people are looking at that sheet they got in their hands. They've got a pen in their pocket. They're writing any questions down that they have. That repair planner will refer to parts diagrams and OE repair procedures whenever it's appropriate to justify to the team, this is why we went down the path this way. There is no allowed sectioning to this component. We must put in the full component per the OE repair procedure. Here they are if you want to review them. When that repair planner completes the line-by-line review of this repair plan in the manner I just described, they then call for questions and comments from each participant that's participating in that meeting. However, they do it in a standard order. They take notes on the identified items that that person brings up, and then they release that participant in the same order. The standard order is I go to my paint technician first if I brought one in. Comments or questions from paint is exactly what I say. And then whatever they tell me, I write down. Or if they ask me a question, I answer it and I make a note about it. Once I'm done with that particular paint technician, I simply say, thank you, I'll see you on the next one. And I move to the next person, which is if I have a lead technician that I brought in as an advisor to this position or to this situation, I do the same thing with them. Comments, questions from lead. Excuse me. A little sip of water there. And I take notes as they bring up any comments or questions. And then I say, thank you, see you on the next one. The third person I bring in is the disassembly tech. They took it apart, so they know what was actually taken apart. So they look at it really from that perspective, and or anything that might have got missed that they identified during the disassembly process. Now, when that disassembly tech is through, I may give them, maybe the lead tech says this and that's got to be taken off, and we didn't get it off because we didn't realize it had to come off. I might have that disassembly tech say, thank you. Now finish up with taking that off, that off, and that off. And their job is wrap up that disassembly, crash wrap that car, get the car outside, bring in the next one, stop short of the repair planning bay, clean the bay, and put the next car in to start the next repair plan. And then lastly, I move to my parts specialist. And they've had time to go through the car, check the sheet, check the parts list, listen to all the comments, and then give me information that they need. Hey, Do you have good photos of those information labels that I can get from you? Yes, they're in CCC. Use your login and that RO number, and you can go right to that tab and you can look at them. And if they don't have access to CCC at that level, then certainly I could just email them to their phone, or I could even bring them up and text them to that phone. Now, having said that, that leads me through in that standard order. So let's look at what each one of them do. The paint technician, their duty is to review the written repair plan. And then they also review the vehicle and the parts on the cart. They also are charged with verifying the color and making any and all blend decisions. I've had a case where the disassembly tech and the repair plan writer were going to take a left corner of a cab apart and the back panel, taking out the glass and disassembling the rear door to blend all of that. Yet the painter showed up with the deck and the light and goes, I don't need you to take all that apart. I can panel paint that bedside and it'll be fine. I've got a 4-inch gap here, and that color is pretty easy. See, the repair planner and the disassembly tech didn't know that. The painter knew that. So what do we really do? We just managed severity on that particular vehicle. So that vehicle, the severity was held down because we didn't add that stuff that was unnecessary. Now we can take the bed off the truck, put the truck out of our way, roll that bed through the process on a dolly to do the side replacement, painting, and everything. Our reassembly becomes very simple and easy. Drop the bed on, bolt it down, plug it up, make sure it's aligned, make sure all the lights work, and we're done. And on top of that, when I need to do the severity higher because there's actual more damage to the vehicle, that raises severity. But these other good decisions lower severity. So now I come out with a level severity that one offsets the other. And that helps me on working with my DRP coordinators. They're also to identify when we have extremely difficult colors where time or extra time is needed. Like, if it's tri-coat, quad coat, translucents, even to the point of a completely different paint for an underside color. Maybe it's a matte finish or it's a completely different color and it's a matte finish. They need to address any used part concerns, right? Like, hey, Mr. Parts person, when you get that used hood in, let me know so I can check it before the trucker leaves with, drops and leaves. Let's check it for mill thickness, because if it's too thick, he can take it back with him and bring us a nothing. And what's that paint condition even look like to start with? Is there damage on that part that's going to need a repair decision, and we get it done right when that part's dropped off? They also call for information, so clarification on painted versus unpainted parts or paint to match parts. Hey, last time we had one of these, we said that grill came painted, it came unpainted. We had to paint it, and we didn't want to write a supplement for that, so we ate that. We don't need to do that again. Let's not lock this thing. Let's get that part. Let's make very, very, sure, if you will, that it's going to come painted and not do it for free. And then nobody, again, thinks like a painter, where they will identify stone guard, weld zone, repair and refinish, flexible parts that need extra attention, accent colors, maybe multiple accent colors. They will identify that. Second is our lead technician. Again, the top two items are exactly the same, reviewing the repair plan and the vehicle and the parts on the car, but also reviewing the OE procedures and identifying anything that might have gotten missed as we wrote the repair plan and we were following that repair procedure, but maybe we misread something. So this is the opportunity for them to catch that. We get it on that initial repair plan. Make and confirm the repair replace decisions. So if there's a repair replace that we're not sure of, and they say no, that will absolutely repair, then we can write it right to start with. If they say it's got to be replaced, we can write it right to start with. Do measurement quick checks in cases where it's needed, like not just a cross measurement, but let's have that printed upper body underhood measurement. And if it says 938 millimeters, let's take that tram gauge and set it to 938 millimeters, measure the 2 points, and let's document on that sheet that we took manual measurements, and these are the ones we took, and here's the results that we came up with. They can confirm all judgment times and pull times if, if the repair planner and disassembly tech have made that decision. And again, if their skill level's not super high where they need to be to make those decisions, this is where that lead tech can help out. They can, again, confirm sectioning decisions. Well, if RTS says it's sectioning available, we go to the repair procedures and we pull the actual sectioning procedure. Now that lead tech can look at the sectioning location locations and make decisions on that, such as I did an F-250 that was aluminum, putting a Uniside in it, and it was like, I don't know, 6 different sectioning locations depending on the damage to the side. Well, the time you encompassed all the damaged areas in that Uniside, there was no need to section this thing in the middle of the B post, the A post, and the C post. So we just said, you know what, makes sense to put this thing in all the way, because we're putting we got the cab corner there. I mean, we're just, the bed's out of the way. We're taking, let's just put the whole thing in and join it at the roof. Because once we make the pull, it'll level the roof out. And then we're not trying to do body work or filler work on seams. And then, of course, they would identify any missed parts. Third is the disassembly tech. And again, I shared with you, their job is the same with the top 2 bullet points, but they're also to identify missed items through the repair plan. Hey, you missed this belt molding. Hey, you missed this wiring repair that we talked about. And then take care of those disassembly items that are identified during discovery, crash wrap that vehicle, get it outside, clean the bay, put the next car in. Fourth and final is the parts specialist. So they got that parts list. They've also got diagrams that we probably printed out, during the repair planning process, the disassembly process. And their job is to review that we've got no mistakes. So you can see those 2 images there. So the first one, the parts specialist is going, hey, Mr. Writer, you missed this lower shield. It's got a tear in it. Got it. And then on the second one, it's kind of funny, but the repair plan writer actually put that green X on that tag bracket and still failed to put it on the repair plan in the computer. Is that going to happen? Absolutely. Your objective is to try to not let that happen, but that's why we have discovery. And then lastly, I know this is an eye chart here, but the repair planner has a lot to do when he wraps up this. So that's why the final disassembly stuff, the disassembly guy can do, any pre-repairs that the disassembly tech could do, like cleaning and retaping a molding, or, maybe he goes ahead and does that wiring harness repair. Things of that nature can be done while that repair plan is finalizing a repair plan, by making sure the labor and the parts are all identified and on there. All the questions are answered, decisions are made, the DRP compliance has been verified, photos are labeled, and any notes associated with photos have been done. Any kind of documentation, like our pre-scan report, our position statements, either take a picture or scan them and let them load right into your management system as an attachment. Run that estimate on XI, say, hey, is my material costs look against what I've got in sales? Is it the appropriate amount of sale, or do I need to add some as a part on my estimate? Making sure that I've got all the line notes, the footnotes, the labor guide notes, all copied into my estimate for documentation, and then making one final review and verification and locking that repair plan. And then, of course, printing out and assembling all the copies for all the different people. And then making sure that that parts cart is loaded, it's organized very well, and it's got a tag on it per the established standard that we have for loading parts carts. Finalize any gaps in that data grid or any gaps in that visual mapping. And complete other items per established process work standard. The reason I put that in there is because each shop is different in what they have their repair planners do, their writers do. So there could be other duties that they have. There ought to be a standard for that. And I'll share with you that we need to be careful how much administrative work we're loading onto the repair plan writer based upon the demand for them to get a certain amount of repairable work into the production floor on a daily basis. So it's just some thoughts to think about. Anything that we want to be a sustainable process, we need to create standardization for. This is actually a standard for discovery, just as I've taken you through it this evening. So you can see that each step is outlined. And this is not an SOP because there's a lot of additional information that goes into SOPs when they're written properly. But this is a work standard that can be used to guide each meeting and remind people this is what we're here for. This could be a big poster. It could be a small piece that people look at when we're doing discovery. But it's a reminder that this is the standard we all agreed to, that we set up and agreed to, and it needs to be followed. Now, with that being said, let's look at a real world example of a written repair plan before discovery and then after discovery. So here's a pre-discovery repair plan as it was finalized. You can still see it sitting in preliminary status on this 2016 Hyundai Elantra. And I want you to really pay a close attention to the totals, if you will. So we've got 12.3 hours in body, 15.6 in paint, and we've got materials at 561.60. So there's our totals. Now, what did we find during discovery? We found that the license bracket was missed on the estimate. The front shield was missed, so we added both of those. We found that the right headlamp wiring harness was missed. We had, identified it needs to be repaired. And by the way, not just the labor to repair it, but also charging for the butt connectors and the heat shrink tubing. We also found out that they writer missed this R&I of the belt molding. And then we also found out that this was a tri-stage color, and they wanted to stay out of, even though this thing was going to get a right fender and repair the door, they wanted to stay out of the A post. Well, okay, the painter says, can I get some color tint to spray out, of the right windshield pillar so I can create a card that tells me this is beyond this 3-stage setup and letdown panel. This is to tint the color and mess with that color enough to stay out of that post where we don't have to, go all the way down, do the post, the roof rail, and the quarter. And it's not a lot of time, half hour, okay? We're not trying to overemphasize this or overdo it. So what did that come up to? Pre-discovery was 12.3, post-discovery 13.5 in body. We picked up a 1.2 hour gain. In paint lever, not so much, but we picked up a little, 0.5. That's 5 hours every time we do 10 jobs that require that. Paint material, we only picked up an additional $18. We can make a decision to either go for that or not go for that. But if we do it as part of the initial estimate or the initial repair plan, we're most likely can collect that, as opposed to saying we're going to put $18 worth of extra materials on a supplement. Parts, we picked up $366.59 because, we identified those pieces that were damaged. And by the way, we also got them on the initial so that we don't have this thing into production. And guess when those would be needed? At the reassembly process. So then we're going to the parts guy and saying, hey, I missed these 2 parts. I need them. How quick can you get them? So then we either burn 1 or 2 more days cycle time because we're waiting on them to come in, or we're asking the parts guy to stand on our head and gargle peanut butter and try to get these parts for us. So our total additional post-discovery gain is $502.46. Ladies and gentlemen, that's not a supplement. That's a corrective action to the original repair plan that is drawn out by a good, solid discovery meeting. Multiplied by 50 repair orders a month, that's 25,123 sale dollars per month. And I'm sure there's some people on the session with us tonight that do a lot more than 50 jobs a month. Well, if you do 100 and you say this is only going to apply to 80% of them, that's still 80 ROs, not 50. But let's just take it at what I've got it here. So 50 ROs, that's 25,000, which comes up to 301,476 additional sales. And at a 40% GP, that's 120,590 GP dollars. Dollars, remember, we put in the bank. Combined together with gaining back at least a portion of that lost production opportunity. And if you do more than 50 repair orders, I'll leave it to you to do the math. But it's extensive. It's massive. It's a lot of lost dollars. I'm going to wrap up with this question before I end the session. How good can we get? And I always end with that question, because I believe that's the question we should ask ourselves every day when we start and every day when we finish. How good can we get? Can we get this repair plan so good that a body technician would want to come by and shake our hand in the afternoon in repair planning because we made it so easy? How good can we get? People say, well, you're looking for perfect. No, nothing perfect. But I am looking for effort and excellence every single day. That's what drives us to win in this business, especially when we're competing with other competitors out there and trying to manage a book of business that's being governed somewhat by a particular insurance partner. With that being said, I'll open it back up. If I can get you guys to come back online, Tony and James will facilitate some questions or see if anybody wants to ask a verbal question, or however you guys want to handle that.
Great presentation, Mike. Everybody remember to get your questions in. Tony, I think I cut you off.
Oh, that's all right. I just said, yeah, thanks, Mike. Yeah.
You deserve a drink after that, Mike.
Oh, man.
I hope there's something good in that cup.
Just water. Just got to keep it going. Thank you guys for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. I hope everybody, found some value they could pick out of this session.
No, I thought it was great.
Thank you.
Tony flew all the way back just to be part of it.
Thank you. Wow. I'll be calling you tomorrow and get a testimonial recorded. I appreciate that, James. Thank you. Thank you. Do we have any questions or typed in? Or are you guys opening up for verbal questions or anything like that?
We got nothing yet, buddy. That means you did such a good job, nobody has questions.
Either that or I bored them to tears and they're all asleep.
No, they're there. We can see
Oh,
them.
they're all there. They're still there online.
Awesome. Awesome.
We'll give it just a minute or two and see if they come in with some stuff.
All right. All right.
We're getting a lot of thank yous.
Okay, cool.
Presentations, so. Can you see the one from Doug Keller?
Yeah.
A lot of good jobs.
Yep. Thanks, Mike. Good job.
Thank you.
Doug, we will ask that question off air.
Well, while we're waiting, if there's anything that anybody on the call feels that I could better clarify or help them with, I know, Tony, you have my contact information. James, you probably do too. Please feel free to, send that to anybody, and I'll be glad to circle back up with them or follow up with them if they got a question or, need some clarification on anything. Sometimes I'll tell you one of the questions that always comes up most of the time. Say, well, you know what, Mike, you started out with that making me sick at my stomach thinking about lost production opportunity, that 35 minutes a day. But didn't you then tell us that discovery meeting is going to go 4 to 6 minutes or so per job? Absolutely. So here's the difference. That lost production opportunity I showed you were things like we're looking for parts. We're looking for, someone to write the something up, looking for missing materials. There's all kinds of things that stop a tech from working. The difference is that time of lost production absolutely accomplishes nothing. So we get zero gain from it. It's a wasted amount of time. And when you look at the time spent with the discovery meeting, first of all, depending on your shop structure, every technician is not going to be tied up with the discovery meeting, okay, for that amount of time during the day. However, that, let's just say it's, 6 to 10 minutes, but somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes, that amount of time actually gets us gain. So we get results from that amount of time. That's the difference between looking at lost production and the time we actually have to spend doing something that's going to correct a problem or prevent a problem from happening once that car is on the production floor or in the reassembly mode.
Completely agree.
Yep.
Those two different times. One is not productive at all, whereas the other one is productive, and a good means to an end on that one. So I couldn't agree more with that one.
I'll share with you, because again, part of my job is I'm actually on the floor teaching repair planning, and I'm teaching how to run these discovery meetings. Most of the time, it's not 100% comfortable for people to be that repair plan leader, right? To be able to speak in front of people like that. They can talk to each other, but to be able to talk in that manner. So it takes a little coaching and guiding and learning, but quite honestly, once they see it, done or demonstrated once or twice, usually they pick up on it and run very well with it, because they start to realize when they start to get that positive feedback from the production team, like the painter or the lead tech, man, they're all over at that point. And it just takes a little bit of time.
So Mike, in the way you do it, so say you got 6 body guys and 2 painters.
Yes, sir.
You're going to have a body guy or 2 that you're going to use most of the time for that, I would guess, correct?
It depends on how they're stuck. That's a great question, James, because it all comes down to the structure. If those 6 guys are divided up into, 2 3-man teams, I'll let each team decide who they send to discovery, as long as they're comfortable with the decisions they're going to make. Now, let's say I've got a really structurally intensive job, and I know 2 people off of that 1 3-man team is really not qualified to make that. I may add a little message into my text that says, need lead tech on this car. That identifies to them, I've got some more higher level or deeper decisions that need to be made. But, if they all work as one, independent techs, one way we can do that is make some decisions around who's going to own that job when we're finished. So who's going to be the repair tech, and we pull that person in so that they can make their decisions on their own repair job.
So you always have the tech that is more geared towards replacing. Then you obviously got the guy that wants to repair everything. How do you combat that? So, I looked at that when I should get that job now, but he's not quite ready for the job when you're ready to hand it out. How do you work through that most of the time?
It's interesting because I have a 3-shop MSO that I do a lot of work with, and that's the one thing they posed to me the last time I was up to do consulting work with them, is they've got probably one of the strongest lead techs in this nation, if you follow what I'm saying. And this guy can do anything, and he can pretty much do it with his eyes closed. Then they have an older guy that wants to just replace everything. He don't want to repair nothing. So the best way to handle that is I pulled them both in a room together with their peers, with everybody else. And I said, okay, let's make some decisions. Okay. It would be worth my time to bring the 2 of them in on every car for a week and start letting them learn together and say, hey, why do you want to replace that when that's a, quick 3-hour fix, and that part, we don't have to wait on the part, we don't have to change the part, and let them begin to learn together. Because the biggest mistake we make in business, whether it's collision business or a lot of other businesses, and some businesses are very, very good at it, but we fail to recognize the value of that training opportunity, right? I look at numbers with shops all the time, and a lot of times I see deficiencies in profit. And it's on profit on cars that are delivered and closed. And they go, well, that really didn't work out well. I go, well, maybe it did. We can't change it. what can we do? We can gain value by using it as a training opportunity to learn what went wrong in that particular RO or that particular set of ROs. Same thing with this. Bring them together. Spend a week just letting them both come. What are you going to burn? 5 or 6 minutes times 2. Big deal. Get it over with and get them together for a whole week, and then come out of it with a really strong debrief with the manager, or or the repair plan writer as the leader, guiding that conversation and getting them to understand how each other works, and then make better decisions around what they repair or replace.
Good answer.
Thank you.
Well, I don't see anything else coming in. You see anything on your end, Tony?
Nope, I don't see anything else coming in, Mike. Thank you so much. Great job tonight, and appreciate you spending your evening with us and sharing some education.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Mike, I do have a question off air for you.
Okay.
So with that said, I want to tell everybody thanks for the good evening, and thanks for joining. And we got more coming up. I believe Dave or Dwayne Watson from Bosch is up next. So that should be a good one. Mr. Adams?
Yep. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate you all's time tonight. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
See you guys.